So as advertised, it says it's going to be an interactive whiteboard session. When I teach, whether it be AP, Honors, CP, Humanities, whatever it is, I'm the type of person that has to be able to write, whether that be a diagram or an example, or when I'm soliciting feedback, writing down the examples the students write, I got to be able to write. And so obviously you can see now my camera's attached to my projector, and I wasn't able to show the whiteboard anymore to be able to write those examples or diagrams successfully. So I had to figure out a way to be able to show the whiteboard to the kids on the screen when we're having virtual classes. So I fiddled around with it for the first couple of weeks of school, and Ed was really pushing this Jamboard that Google has. And so what I've done with Jamboard is been able to figure out how to write on the Jamboard or the electronic whiteboard itself. And as a result of that, they can kind of see in live time what it is that you're writing, and they can see it come without having any delay. If you've ever seen a Khan Academy video, it's very similar to what Khan Academy looks like, where you have the board and the person will write with the marker, and the text will appear as you do it, as you go through. So I'll show you what that looks like, a couple of ways in which I do it, and if we have time at the end, I'll take any questions that you may have. The one thing I will say before I start is when you do this, and I'll share my screen out so you can see what I'm talking about. No matter where you are, no matter what room you're in, you do have to turn off your smartboard ink. So what I mean by that is when you go to the search bar on the bottom left, if you search for smart ink, you do smart ink settings, it will show you something that looks like this. There's a little tab in the middle that says turn off smart ink. You have to turn that off. And the reason for that, this was part of the issue I had early on, was that if you use the smartboard ink, that only shows up on the smartboard. So when the kids see it at home and you're writing on this Jamboard that I'll show you, it doesn't appear on their screens because it's only on the board that's in your room. It doesn't project to what they're doing at home. So that was the issue that I had. Once you turn that off, Once you turn that off, you should be good to go. So, go to Jamboard. You can see here it's blank. You take your marker as if you would write on a regular, smart notebook or whatever it is. You go to your settings. You click on your marker. Now you have to picture your marker is now your new mouse. So I have my computer screen on my smartboard right now. This is essentially my new computer. So I have my marker. I'm pushing on the indicators accordingly. You have your eraser, you have your mouse, you have your marker. You click on the marker again. You can go to a thicker setting. You can go change the color, whatever it may be. So I'm going to use the red just for an example. So when I start to write, you can see that it updates in live time. So while I'm writing, the kids are seeing this at home. Now, obviously, I'm relegated to a small square in the corner of your screen when I'm writing, but nonetheless, they're able to see what it is that I'm writing here. And again, I like it because in real time, I can just do examples. I can write, whatever it is that we're doing. If I have to erase it, I go to the eraser and I just go over it like this. If I want to clear the whole screen, I just hit clear frame, clears the whole thing, and then we're back to where we are. The other nice thing about this is that it accumulates over time. So you can see this is my AP Government Jamboard. I have 15 other slides on here that I've accumulated over the course of the year. And I put this Jamboard on Classroom so they can go back and look throughout the course of the year and say, oh, what did he talk about when we did cooperative federalism? Oh, here it is right here. And they can scroll back on their own time to go back and kind of review it. So I like it from that standpoint also, because it accumulates over time, so it doesn't have to be static. It's something that you can use throughout the course of the year as a review or whatever it may be. So in terms of writing, that's how I like to use it from that standpoint. The other nice feature about it is you can have the kids collaborate on their own. So I did one assignment where they had to look at a Federalist paper. And for homework, they had to read a particular paper they were assigned. And then when they came to class, I had it in breakout rooms on Google Classroom. and they have to have 3 main ideas about their paper, 2 constitutional principles, and a quote that caught their attention. So I shared this Jamboard out to the entire group, and what you had was they talked and they wrote in live time, and they found their 3 main ideas, their 2 principles, and their quote. And so from there, it's kind of just a different way. It's basically like a Google Doc, nonetheless, it's a different way to do it. But for them, I think it was just a different way to kind of collaborate and write down their ideas accordingly. The other nice feature, which this group didn't do, is you can use sticky notes. So for my humanities course, I always start the lesson with learning targets and success skills, and you can create these cool sticky notes, which is this feature right here. If you were just to type something, and my Smartboard keyboard is not being cooperative. Here it is. So if I were to type something, today is Wednesday, you hit save, and then that sticky note would appear right on the board. I can make it bigger so everybody can see it, and it's just a cool way for them to be able to collaborate with each other. So there's a different tool to use beyond just a standard Google Doc or whatever it may be. And certainly you can share that out to your classroom as well. You can have them collaborate together, which also is a nice feature. And another new feature on that topic is Google Meet just updated. So you can now, you can share the Jamboards out within the Meet itself as opposed to having to go and make it outside of it. So if you go down to the 3 dot here at the bottom, if you can see on the top here, it says Whiteboard, open a Jamboard. You can choose one from your drive, or you can simply start a new one within the Meet itself. And I haven't done this in class yet because I just saw it this morning, so I haven't fiddled around with it yet, but from what I can gather, it seems like once you share it into the Meet, you all can write on it. So if you actually want to try that now, we can learn together. Maybe we'll figure this out. So if anybody can take your mouse and see if you can write on this, this might solve our, so that's me. Okay. Only for me? Okay. All right, so if you change the setting, I think if you change it to edit, then that would allow you to be able to do that. But again, it takes off the time of having to go and open a new window as opposed to having it embedded within the Meet itself. So if I were to change the setting to edit, you all would be able to do that very easily. And again, that's basically the crux of it. A way to show material on the whiteboard without having to move the camera and have it be clear for the kids to be able to see. I haven't had any negative feedback from students about, oh, I haven't been able to see your Jamboard, or the writing doesn't appear as you write it. They've all said that it comes pretty standard. So from that standpoint, it's been pretty successful. We got about 10 minutes left. I'll be happy to take any questions you may have about processes or however else I use it or whatever it may be. If you want to drop in the box, I can do it that way and then just go through what's there. Yeah, so Kim, you can make a copy. So the Jamboard itself, when you post it to Classroom as an assignment, you only can post it as a view only or an edit. They don't have the feature yet where you can make a copy for each student for the Jamboard itself. What you would have to do, and it'd be a bit tedious, is you would have to make enough copies for each student to do their own. But they don't have the feature yet in Classroom where you can make a copy for the Jamboard if you post it as an assignment. So if you do it as group work, obviously you could do 5 people in a group. If you have 5 groups, you have to make 5 Jamboards. And then you would have those 5 collaborate on the one that they have for their group. But right now they don't have the feature for make a copy for each student as you post it. Oh, you can't? Maybe, Keith, is that true? I didn't know that. PDFs to Jamboard, Robert, I never tried, so I don't know for certain. So you would have to fiddle with that on your own. I've never tried to put a PDF in there. I can tell you this, not related to Jamboard, what we used on Wednesday, the Go Formative PD, you can upload PDFs to that. So that would be an alternative if it doesn't work on Jamboard. Yes, Tim, it can't be used while you use slides. You would have to make the Jamboard so they would have it on a separate tab, and then you could have a slideshow going at the same time, and they could augment what you're saying on slides and write on the Jamboard accordingly. Obviously, you can only share out one tab at a time. So if you're sharing out your slides, they'd only be able to see the slides, but they could certainly have the Jamboard open on a separate tab and use that as a note for themselves. They want to type on it. That certainly would work, yes. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I don't want to take too much more of your time. Mia, how do you send the Jamboards to groups? So, if you go to, I can take you to Google Classroom and show you that. So, if you were to go to Classroom, so if you go to classwork, you go to create, like you normally would, you do an assignment, you go to add, you go to drive. I'll just use the one that we did before. I go to insert it. Oh, well, I guess they updated this too, so you can make a copy for each student. So Heath, you were right, as you said before, so my apologies for doubting you. So you would make a copy for each student. Mia, right here. Each student would get that same Jamboard. You simply title it like you would any other assignment. And then you would simply just assign it accordingly like you would any other one. And then that would appear on Classroom, and then they could edit it. Now again, you have to make sure you give them editing rights for that particular Jamboard. If you leave it view only like I did, they wouldn't be able to collaborate on it. But if you give them editing rights within that, you can do it. The way you change the editing rights, you go to Share in the upper right corner, and then you have to make sure that you go to Change down here, and then make sure that this says Editor. If it says View, you're not going to be able to edit it. If it says Editor, then you're good to go. You hit Done, and then they can get on there and collaborate accordingly. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, and one thing I'll say before I officially wrap up, if you try this and you're saying to yourself, it's not working the way he showed it, you have to make sure that you turn off the Smart Ink on your computer. So again, you go to the lower search bar here, you type in Smart Ink settings, and then you make sure that this, if it says turn on Smart Ink, that means it's off. So you have to make sure this is off, because if you use the Smartboard ink on the Jamboard, the kids are not going to see it at home, because again, the Smartboard ink only shows up on the Smartboard itself. You have to make sure it's off, so when you write on the Jamboard itself, you're using the marker features of the actual board itself. Okay, so just one thing to make sure you're aware of when you go out and try this on your own. Okay? There's no other questions. I'll let you go 5 minutes early to be respectful of your time. I appreciate you taking the time to come to the session, and I hope it was productive for you. So thank you very much. Have a good rest of your morning.